10 Greatest WWE Feuds, Attitude Era. Many people and WWE fans think that the WWE Attitude Era was the best time in professional wrestling history. When watching Monday Night Raw today from that era, you felt that you cared about the wrestlers and especially the storylines that was almost as good as a soap opera and you couldn't wait for the next episode. The Attitude Era storylines were without a doubt the hottest thing in wrestling at the time. The Attitude Era helped WWE put WCW out of business, especially due to great moments during the Raw shows and exciting pay-per-view events at that time. So now, here are 10 of the best WWE feuds during the unforgettable Attitude Era. Number 10. Undertaker vs. KANE. The Attitude Era had its fair share of colorful wrestlers, The Godfather as a pimp for example, but nothing came close to the one and only, The Undertaker. Started as a gimmick, and morphed into a legend. Then came KANE, Undertaker's brother. It was in 1997 when the Big Red Machine, led by Paul Bearer, cost Undertaker his WWF title bout against Shawn Michaels. And then the feud began. Quality of the matches were not 5-star, but the feud brought a lot of emotions, good storytelling, blood and great moments to remember. Number 9. Edge and Christian vs. the Dudley Boys vs. the Hardy Boys. There was not a lot of great tag team wrestling in the Attitude Era. Many times, the tag titles were held by makeshift tag teams of two standalone stars teaming up, often bitter rivals forced to work together. There was one exception, and it was the greatest tag team feud in WWE history. The tag teams of the Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian feuded for the WWE Tag Team titles during the Attitude Era, and no one did it better. They were perfectly matched and introduced WWE to the idea of the TLC matches, of which they all mastered. Number 8. The Rock vs. Mankind. This feud really shows the greatness of the Attitude Era and why it is considered the best year of WWE history. The Rock and Mankind had some brutal matches, including an I Quit match that saw The Rock deliver multiple unprotected chair shots to Foley's head before winning by cheating. Then, the two had an antagonistic friendship later, which culminated with the This Is Your Life segment that was one of the most watched in WWE history. These two wrestlers beat each other over and over before finally joining forces as the Rock and Sock Connection, and we definitely miss those kind of brutality during matches. Number 7. Undertaker vs. Shawn Michaels. An amazing feud between two of the biggest wrestling stars of the 90s. The image of a blood-drenched Shawn Michaels being carried up the ramp by his DX cohorts was one of the defining images of 1997, whilst the one of Undertaker grabbing his cocksure adversary by the throat is one of the defining images of Botchamania. It had a 5-star match, helped launch Kane's career, and it capped off Michaels' first run. Without a doubt, a feud to remember. Number 6. Kurt Angle vs. Triple H. The feud shared between Kurt Angle and Triple H was so good because there were a couple of things that made this pairing so great. First, the quality of the matches. Angle was still relatively wet behind the ears when he first crossed paths with the Cerebral Assassin, but he more than held his own in high-caliber encounters at Unforgiven 2000 and the Royal Rumble the following year. The gradual emergence of a love triangle involving Steph made it all the more goofy, but somehow no less intense, and honestly, that was what the Attitude Era was all about. Number 5. The Rock vs. Triple H. This feud actually started from a previous feud back in 1998 between D-Generation X vs. the Nation of Domination. At that point, they were feuding over the Intercontinental Championship, in its original function as a launch pad for future main event stars, which peaked with a pulsating ladder match at SummerSlam. A couple of years later, though, it was for the championship, with both men succeeded in reaching the very top of the card at almost exactly the same time. And this time The Rock was the thorn in the establishment's side, threatening to undermine the McMahon-Helmsley stranglehold as he battled Triple H, most notably in a 60-minute Iron Man match at Judgment Day, for the WWF title. Number 4. The Rock vs. Stone Cold Steve Austin. When a feud headlines WrestleMania twice, you know it's something fans want to see and you know that it's an awesome feud. The Rock and Austin are two of wrestling's biggest ever stars, who both just so happened to hit their record-setting peak years right around the same time. They were dynamite when they talked, and dynamite when they fought. They had it all. It was such an era-defining rivalry, in fact, that it has become the benchmark against which any and all subsequent feuds are measured. Number 3. Undertaker vs Stone Cold. The Undertaker and Stone Cold were arguably the two figures most central to the success of the Attitude Era, in that they were really the only two who both entered and emerged from the period as main eventers. And that was reflected in the number of times they fought. It was basically the feud that never quite went away. From 1998 to 2001, both wrestlers were at various points aligned with and against Vince McMahon. The most notable of their encounters was perhaps in mid-1999, when the corporate ministry storyline in which they were both intimately involved began to dominate WWF TV, and a first blood match for the world title at Fully Loaded. Number 2. Undertaker vs Mankind. If we had to summarize the Undertaker vs Mankind feud in 2 words, it would be these words: ultraviolet. Just take a look at the Hell in a Cell match between Undertaker and Mankind. Paul Bearer had betrayed Undertaker and brought in Mankind to beat up his former charge. The two fought all over, with some classic boiler room matches. However, the match that made this feud truly legendary happened in Hell in a Cell. No one will ever forget how Undertaker threw Mankind off the top of the cage, through an announcer's table, or Undertaker choke slamming Mankind through the top of the cage, legitimately knocking him out in the process. Number 1. Vince McMahon vs Stone Cold Steve Austin. So there you have it. The number 1 feud of the Attitude Era, only this time it wasn't against any wrestler. It was Steve Austin versus the chairman of the board himself, who would stop at nothing in his attempts to prevent Stone Cold from becoming the face of his company. The two finally met in the ring in 1999, with Big Show inadvertently helping Austin to win the match at St. Valentine's Day Massacre. However, this feud will be remembered due to the moments outside the ring. Austin paying McMahon a visit in the hospital, Austin filling McMahon's car with cement, and more. Yes, these were indeed the good times. Maybe this was a one-sided feud, but you wouldn't have had it any other way, and without it, WWE may not have overturned WCW Nitro's ratings lead. That's all folks. 10 of the best WWE feuds during the Attitude Era. Sure, there were many other great feuds and that is what makes this era probably the best, but we couldn't include all of them here and now. What is your favorite feud and why? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed our video, please like it and subscribe to support our channel, we really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we upload new videos to our channel. Have an amazing day.